Well, hello, that's me again. Today is July 26, 2025. It is Saturday, so I decided to give you a little bit of, well, heads up, if you wish, on the events of our world which we live in. And obviously, well, Russia is celebrating the Navy Day tomorrow. And it's always the last weekend of July. So as you might understand, I will be busy, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. So I have a lot of people to, congratulate. They will be calling me, and so yeah, it's gonna be very busy. But what you see in the beginning actually is Russia continuing to do what Russia does, and what Russia does is killing enemy troops. And I want to again go back to Mr. Svechin and strategy. Some obviously smart American Western observers, such as people of the scale of Colonel Lester Grau, for example, and number of others with the military background who paid attention to Svechin, they talk about what is happening all the time, while obviously people in Pentagon and the generals from top brass, if you wish, of American and NATO forces, they absolutely lost. They are absolutely lost in what is happening. But let me remind you something about Mr. Svechin, and we'll talk after that, why Russians continue to do what they're doing, and we'll review a little bit of the tactical and operational situation on the line of the combat contact. So if you take a look at his famous work, which is of course strategy, you can see yourself that he talks about constantly essentially what amounts to, which later was elaborated by very many Russian military thinkers, that capturing territory is a necessary evil, which comes with the, literally, pardon me for tautology, comes with the territory, which of course should be superseded by the main aim of war. It's the physical annihilation of the enemy forces. And he talks about those material battles. Material battles he calls the position warfare. That's what many people interpreted it as, although it's a little bit more complex in 2025. Obviously, but so he writes in 1926, well, century ago, that even in the so-called material battles of positional warfare, which are designed to last entire months and involve trampling over the same piece of ground in an organized way, and in which therefore gaining ground is less important than inflicting greater losses on the enemy than the losses we bear, even if this exceptional cases surprise in concentrating on material and the resultant surprises beginning an operation is of great importance for success. Absolutely. And this was applied from the get-go, and I've been on record so much about this, and I want to remind you that, well, we can call it positional warfare, but in reality it is not. It is slow, grinding advance to the west for Russian army. And this is what many people do not understand. They still think that their front line runs kind of practically static, and Russians just merely kill what I call it now, and I know it sounds horrible, it's called the sperm bank of the Ukrainian man, if you wish, for Ukraine not to exist anymore as any kind of threat, and that's just the way it is. It's just practical and applied geopolitics, and this is how world revolves around, around what it revolves. And so, if we take a look at the losses yesterday, you can see yourself that, yeah, we have the continuation of the meat grinder, yet another Patriot have been put out of action. We know that Germany is transferring 3 of them, which will make no difference whatsoever. They will be, once they will be turned on, they will be annihilated. But yeah, it's the PR action, because we already know Patriot, it's just, well, practically useless. And so what we have here, 1,255, which, well, casualties in general, but it's pretty much, well, KIAs. And yeah, Ukraine also continues to launch those drones on the civilian targets in Russia, but yeah, Russian air defense works properly and shoots down most of them. This is not to say that one or two leakers don't go through. Of course they do, and people get hurt, some people get killed, but it's not a large number, however sad it is. So the number of these guys, well, sent to whatever, heaven or hell, is reaching 1.3 million. So we're probably going to be talking about, as I already stated, 1.5 million KIAs on the Ukrainian side. And then we can take a look at schemes, so to speak. First, we go to our good friend Marat and his other good friend, who is the Afghan veteran and colonel, who is the guy behind this absolutely no, as they call, non-classified maps, as you can see yourself. In terms of, they call Krasnoarmeysk. Original name of Pokrovsk is Krasnoarmeysk. So if you look attentively at the happenings, yeah, Russian diversionary recon groups are inside it, and there are panic communications constantly coming out of Pokrovsk that, well, yeah, we're done, we're gonna be all killed. And this map is from yesterday, and as you can see yourself, there is another place here which is called Radinskaya, and if you go at the scheme of the things, and again, do not forget, anybody who tells you that they have the precise maps of happenings, no, just don't believe them. They are basically selling you the snake oil, and that will tell you immediately that those people are in it for whatever the reasons, you know, as the most of the YouTubers with the military analysis are doing. So they're selling BS. However, what we know, and which is kind of, you know, what hearsay map, but with a good degree of accuracy in terms of the operational and strategic picture, if you wish, you can see yourself that also this scheme also shows you that already Russians are deep inside Pokrovsk, and Radinskaya is going to be taken fairly soon. But even if you look attentively at the gap here and you compare it to the scale to the right lower corner, you can see yourself, which is double line. It's probably about, well, 15 kilometers at best. So Russians on both sides control all kinds of the ways or paths or roads out of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd agglomeration, which means what? Yeah, those people who will try to run, they will be killed or taken prisoners. So it is all completely covered now by Russian drones and Russian artillery. And so you can see yourself what is happening here in the scheme. And yes, it's more or less accurate. We obviously will never know composition of force or Russian forces and what kind of forces are there. There is a lot of people who say, oh yeah, Telegram channel of some moron tells us this on that. Oh, we don't know, because if you know the composition of forces, you will know pretty much what they're going to be doing very soon. But it's not just Pokrovsk or Konstantinovka, which is, you know what, now traditional in Ukrainian military info, which they, by the way, also supply to Pentagon and a bunch of the morons from NATO who believe that, you know, is that, well, yeah, Pokrovsk is now losing strategic significance. And if you know what I mean, that means what? They know it's a goner. Same goes for Konstantinovka, and if we take a look also on their situation with Kupiansk, well, look at this. Well, you see, that's Kupiansk. It's basically surrounded now. And again, take a look at the scale on the right lower corner, and you can see yourself that essentially Russians are controlling now by artillery and drones, or, you know, all roads which are going to this agglomeration of Kupiansk and Kovsharovka. It's a pretty large place, actually. And so, yeah, Russians are not going to be going there without, you know, reason, because why? I mean, obviously DRGs, the diversionary recon groups, are specifically designed for fighting and providing the accumulation of the forces within their urban areas, and Russians are masters of this because that's what they've been doing for the last 3.5 years. And so, as you can see yourself, it looks really grim for them, and that brings us more towards this, herding, so to speak, of Europeans, who obviously, well, in terms of United States, we know what and who we are dealing with Mr. Trump. And I want to address to you this interesting piece by Mr. George Bebe. He was a former CIA and analyst, and allegedly the analyst for Russia. Look at his CV. This is not to say that he doesn't understand anything. No, he does, obviously. He has a clue, he has an idea. So he is the vice president and director of studies at the Center for the National Interest. He's the author of the book Russia Trap, How Our Shadow War with Russia Could Spiral into Catastrophe. And so he has he was in CIA and senior intelligence service in 2006. And so, yeah, he wasn't Dick Cheney's staff, actually, which kind of, it's not a good line, so to speak, to have in your CV or in your resume. But okay, so he talks about things which is, that's what he talks about this in negotiations, so to speak. And as you can see yourself, it's yesterday piece in this Responsible Statecraft Quincy Institute website, and he talks about that no NATO for Ukraine is key to jumpstarting stalled talks. Well, he is correct in the sense that it's one of the main points for starting any kind of talks. And again, talks not between Russia and Ukraine as much as the Ukraine continues to pour loads of bullshit, pardon my French, into the ears and minds of the American policymakers. But he talks about that, okay, bringing peace to Ukraine has obviously proved more difficult than President Trump imagined when he pledged to end the conflict in a day. Well, that's what he does. Trump primarily imagines things, and we know why. But Bebe makes a point that while many have cheered his toughened approach, Trump insists to find a diplomatic end to war is still correct. While instinct is, pardon me, not insist, instinct. You shouldn't be moving on instincts, actually, if you are a statesman, and especially the statesman of the scale running the country, or rather pretending or imagining that you run the country, such as the United States. So you should have a real good intel. Evidently, Trump, even if he has it, he doesn't understand what he's dealing with. And many people, like our good friend Larry Johnson speak about it. The guy that Mr. Trump doesn't understand actually what is happening. And I think that Mr. Bibi also not quite there, So, and Ukraine cannot generate enough manpower, and the West cannot produce enough weapons for victory in what has become a war of attrition to be realistic. And although Russia cannot conquer and govern all of Ukraine, you see, they still believe it. First, Russia can conquer and govern all of Ukraine, but that's the problem. This is what that type of people who essentially drove the United States in the last 20 years into the ground with this type of the approach. Russia doesn't want to conquer and govern all of Ukraine, and that is the basically strategic aim, which was specifically stated pretty much from the onset of the special military operation, which actually didn't start, as you might remember, in earnest on the February 24, 2022. No, it was after the negotiations have been sabotaged by Mr. Boris Johnson, but obviously on behalf of the United States. So Mr. Bibi again makes this profound mistake of failing to understand, which is normal for most of the so-called military intel community in the United States and elsewhere, of understanding the correlation of forces and means. You need to have military background. You really need to have serious military background to really have a grasp of it. Otherwise, you end up with those things just saying that, oh, Russians cannot do this. That's the whole point. Russians can. They just don't want to. And they better start reading Mr. Svechin, because Russians are not in the territory conquering there, except for obviously those already existing 4 republics. We're not talking about Crimea, but evidently things are happening in such a way, like in Sumy. As you can see yourself, Sumy is being evacuated and all kinds of things flying there, and then you can see yourself what is happening in Kherson. And this was actually the gathering of some top brass of Ukrainian armed forces, including the parts of the Intel and Internal Affairs group of officers. Evidently, they are not there anymore. And this will continue. Russians are not in rush. And anybody who thinks that Mr. Trump can do something on the instinct, I have a bridge to sell them. You cannot do that. And that's where we come to this very important juncture. And I am, I will have the blister on my tongue very soon, just repeating this over and over again. But evidently, I have to. And here we have this issue. Very many people who write to my blog or who write in the comments under the videos of mine that, oh, Russians have to do this and they have to do that. Oh my God, Putin doesn't understand. He's being cheated upon by the West. Let me explain. If you think that Mr. Putin is Mr. Trump, I have a bridge to sell you. And so let's go to Maria Zakharova. And this is today, as you can see yourself. And this is what Russians were repeating non-stop. Peace talks and the settlement of the Ukrainian crisis have never been on the West's real agenda. Otherwise, it would have stopped supplying weapons to Kiev. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zahara said, if the West wanted peace in Ukraine, it would probably stop supplying weapons. It would probably stop sponsoring terrorist attacks, which that's completely done by the West. It would probably make sure that the Kiev regime does not implement and spread extremist ideology, but it does none of it. And Russians are keenly aware of the intentions of Mr. Trump, who obviously is not there for the peace deal. I'm sorry, I mean, that sounds horrible in Russian. So he's not into peace. He's there to, as Mr. Bebe, for example, still fails to understand, Mr. Trump there is in for a single thing: to extricate United States from this basically quagmire on the U.S. Conditions. Not going to happen. It's already not happening. He already failed. And so that's the only idea behind him. He doesn't care. And again, look at the genocide which Israel actually commits in Gaza. He doesn't care about, those beautiful young people who are being killed, evidently he thinks that Russians already lost millions upon millions of people. So, but that's Trump. And no, he doesn't care. There is no humanitarian impulse or instinct, for that matter, as Mr. Bebe would put it, that he wants to stop it. No, all this rhetoric, all this legerdemain, all this, good Lord, I mean, BS, is all for one purpose: to somehow preserve some parts of Ukraine for the future use as the ram against Russia, and of course extricate United States, who is the party to this war and who is a loser in this war. Simple as that. And United States military have been stained forever now with supporting the terrorist Nazi regime and essentially parading around the world its actually technological and operational impotence. Just to give you an example, which is altogether funny, it is a complex issue. It needs to real professional to see through these piles of the heap of BS produced by Israelis. So we have the Stars and Stripes newspaper, which talks about that. Well, it's terminal, after this 12-day war. Look at this. Stars and Stripes write 2 days ago that U.S. used 14% of its THAAD stockpile against Iran. A report says it could take years to replenish. Well, we know that, and again, it's catastrophe. So they now want to put more THAAD, which is absolutely ineffective. So, but look at this. They talk about this, and they refer themselves to one very particular report, which I will discuss shortly with you. And so we have this, data. The analysis conducted by researchers at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America found that interceptors fired by the United States THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Systems, account for nearly half of all interceptors used to protect Israel from Iran's medium-range ballistic missiles. So they say that while THAADs, along with Israel's Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 interceptors, successfully destroyed 201 of Iran's 574 missiles, the rapid depletion, how about we're looking at all of those things which are top notch? You know, this is like the best air defense system in the world. They couldn't handle even 50%. It's much less than, well, you divide by 201 by 574 and you get the percentage of effectiveness. It is pathetic. It is absolute disaster if you operate with this type of so-called effectiveness, which really is not effective. So, and we knew this. I've been talking about this for a long time. But this is a funny, actually, report which they, this Jewish Institute for Security of America, that's, Jewish Institute for National Security of America, whatever. But look at this. They published 5 days ago a funny thing. And that is why you can throw away this report, which actually is referenced by the Stars and Stripes, which tells you pretty much how the American military thinks. It doesn't think in terms of the combat effectiveness or real actually combat data, especially when the data is provided by either Israel or Ukrainians. So their research shows that the June 13-24 war was likely more expensive for Iran, particularly when measured as a share of GDP per capita than for the United States of Israel. So the guys decided to literally count money instead of actual, interaction of the two militaries, or rather three militaries, and how the air defense performed. No, they started to base it on the dollar values. This is pathetic, and you can throw this away immediately as the completely incompetent garbage. But still, I mean, you cannot deny the numbers which are there, and everybody knows that less than, well, probably what? Let me do it. Okay, I'm just interested. Okay, I cannot. Let's see what was there. Okay, let's divide 201 by 574. Okay, now do I have? Good Lord, 35% effectiveness. I mean, it's catastrophe. It means most of your forces in the real world will be obliterated. So this is what we can say about it. That's it. I mean, how else you will, basically discuss it? But because there is obviously the Navy Day comes to Russia tomorrow, and there will be celebration. The main parade was justifiably, by the way, canceled in St. Petersburg because there are many terrorists, Ukrainian terrorists, all kinds of terrorists supported by MI6 and CIA running around. But Mr. Patrushev already stated that pretty much, and I'm sure that Mr. Naryshkin talks to also to Mr. Ratcliffe of CIA, and they warned about that. UK could easily stab US in the back, Putin's aide. If necessary, London would easily stab Washington in the back. I believe officials in the White House realize what kind of an ally, quote unquote, they are dealing with. Patrushev told RIA News yesterday. His comments follow allegation last month by a Russian SVR that British intelligence has been directly involved in orchestrating covert Ukrainian operations. And they talk about this possibility of the false flag that SVR claimed that UK had acquired torpedoes of Soviet and Russian design for potential use in a false flag incident, specifically a staged attack on an American naval vessel in the Baltic Sea. Yeah, this is what they do. This is the only thing they can do, because the military, they are impotent, they are cowards, they hide behind basically backs of their own terrorists and there's SOBs, so from Ukraine. And so, yeah, could they do this? Yes, they could. So probably Mr. Naryshkin communicated this to Mr. Ratcliffe. And fact is, that's the other thing. Anybody who thinks that Russians will torpedo somebody, they don't have to. If you take a look at Russian naval arsenal, and good Lord, Why would you torpedo somebody when you can blow it to smithereens by the anti-shipping missile? So, but yeah, this is how they think. They are primitive creatures there, and yeah, they need to, keep their country, which is basically declining, completely into some kind of near world powers. And I want to send you to the very interesting talk by Andrei Bezrukov. You probably remember him by Mr. Hetfield name. I believe that was his the undercover name. He worked for 20 years together with his wife till 2010 in the United States. In the deep cover, everybody thought that they were Americans. And yes, perfect English, everything. So, but in reality, he was sold out by somebody who basically betrayed them. And he was, together with wife, they have been actually imprisoned and then exchanged for some American asset. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. I want to send you to his lecture in the Judicial Forum, Legal Forum, 13th St. Petersburg International Forum, and where he talks about the medium to long-term trends about energy, and he talks about the three will survive. Russia, the USA, and Brazil. I understand why he puts Brazil into this list, because obviously Brazil has pretty much most of the resources it needs to survive, but obviously it's not a superpower, not even close to Russia and the United States. And so, but I would suggest you listen. No, I do not agree with everything he says, but he has a point here on which I constantly speak. And one of the most important part of his point is what I'm preaching for second decade now, that Russia and the United States, as the genuine military economic superpowers, they move in a completely different actually dimension. They move in a completely different set of circumstances, which of course other people have to observe. They can still influence that, especially Global South, and they constitute the bulk of the public opinion, they constitute the bulk of the world economy, but militarily still we're looking at two nuclear superpowers, and Trump now wants to start negotiations. Yeah, Trump wants a lot of things. I want to become a billionaire or zillionaire. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, because obviously you need to have the preconditions for becoming one, or holding that start negotiations with Russia. And Russians already stated that by means of Mr. Peskov, that yeah, sure, Russians want to, but it will require serious preparatory work. And so Mr. Bezrukov talks about it, why he thinks, which I agree with him, that survivals, in the sense that they can survive it without huge, shock, or the United States still already is experiencing some real shocks, and they are. You can see it on the streets of the American cities and elsewhere. But listen to it, and very important and very interesting. And then, of course, we have Russia's Navy Day. And now that we have the situation with the Admiral Kuznetsov being essentially, yeah, it's over for this ship. It represents no real value in the real war. So I want to point out that Russians continue to build at Kerch Zaliv this thing. Actually, two of them. You can go and look at the Google Maps. A bunch of their, they're not really military analysts. They are fanboys who do, browse their Google Maps and all that. You can see yourself two hulls of those Ivan Rogov and Mitrofan Moskalenko, Universal ships, amphibious ships, which are being built. The first one, Ivan Rogov, should be on the sea trials by 2027. And as you can see yourself, it's demonstrated with the Ka-52 navalized version of the combat helicopters, and all kinds of the ASW helicopters and transport helicopters. It has all kinds of those funny vessels which it can unload together with 1,000 of the Marines. So, but here is the issue, and that's what many people do not understand. The era of the very big flat tops is over. And so if you take a look at what this Hyuga carrier which is actually twice smaller in terms of in terms of the displacement. For example, Russian project 23900, Ivan Rogov in Moskalenko, full displacement is up to 40,000 tons. This one is about 20,000 tons. But guess what? This amphibious, universal amphibious ships by Japanese naval forces actually have been essentially converted together with the deck for F-35 short take-off vertical landing aircraft. Well, guess what? Russians are on record that the work on Russian Stovol aircraft, whatever it will be, it could be Yakovlev or Sukhoi or MiG, it doesn't matter. So it's ongoing. So I would expect on this Navy Day that essentially some people say, yeah, looks like we're just not helicopter carrier. It's something like the mixed aircraft carrier, which is designed for the modern warfare and which of course will carry not only the Stovol aircraft, which is short takeoff, vertical landing, but also the unmanned aerial vehicles, and this is the reality which is coming to us. And of course, if you look at the escorts, as I already stated, once you get the new generation of hypersonic weapons, basically a couple of ships can basically plug in the whole Atlantic, and good luck trying to deploy your forces there in case of real war. But this is what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. That will keep me in this business. So have a nice rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.